Welcome to another Modern Mind Ancient Book where we are going back to move forward. My name's Roger. I'll be your host today. If you'd like to reach out to us, please feel free at modernmindancientbook@gmail.com. We have Nick with us today. How you doing today, Nick?
I'm great. Really glad to be here. You had a little bit of an NPR vibe going on, actually, in the way that you were saying that intro. So I'm your host, Roger, and today
Well, thank you. I mean, those are professional hosts there. I mean, I feel good about that.
I've always said you have the voice for podcasting.
Well, I appreciate that, Nick. Thank you for all that you do. Nick is our creative director. He's helping to change the podcast to make it just a little more professional, or a lot more professional, and more appealing to the listener. So we hope that you stay listening. You should see some good changes in the near future. And today, we're continuing in the New Covenant, or the New Testament, and we're going to be doing the second book. The first book was, you remember?
James.
The book of James.
Jacob.
That's right. Yep, the brother of Jesus. And the second book is the book of Galatians. So we're doing these in chronological order, or when they were written and distributed.
Right.
And Galatians is the second book.
Which is interesting, something that I learned fairly recently. It wasn't because of this, but definitely something I went most of my life without knowing. I didn't realize that letters of Paul would have come before the Gospels, even though I knew they weren't written, contemporaneous with Christ. I didn't even think that, of course, letters to administration and stuff would come before
super
a lot
practical.
Of the historical.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because you're dealing with people, writing letters.
Right. I just don't think I'm the only one, though, who, even if you're told that the Bible books are not arranged in chronological order, still wouldn't have, necessarily figured that out. Like, that's a weird one.
Yeah, I think most people figure Matthew was the first book, right?
Yeah, and even if they don't necessarily think it was the first, because it makes sense to read that before you get to the letters of Paul and figure, like, what is he referencing? It's all there in Matthew. But he was doing that.
I think we're going to find out it actually makes more sense to read the letters first.
Right, I'm saying, but you could justify in your mind why you would have to know, as a modern reader, the story of, Jesus' backstory before Paul is talking about
you're right.
who Jesus is.
Well, I think that's mainly the reason why the books are organized that way.
Right, but we did it for us.
Yeah.
Not because it actually made sense with what was going on.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, in this case, what we're trying to do is create the case that there is, in a chronological order, that these are real-life events.
Right.
That they were happening in a time and in a space where, these letters actually see the formation of different churches in different places. So let's say this for instance, Galatia. I mean, that's Turkey, right? And what is there? What was there? Later on, the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Orthodox Church, right? I mean, this place ended up being a staying point, a sticking point where Christianity really, really flourished, right? And so, Jerusalem probably would have stayed that way, except for it was eventually destroyed. And this is a region that just flourished under the teachings of really Paul in this case, right? So the title of this epistle, so this is one of the epistles, it's a pastoral epistle, is designated by the people of the churches of the region of Galatia, to which it was written. This is the only epistle of Paul that is specifically addressed to a group of churches in a particular region. The term Galatia, was used for this area to identify the cultural and geographical origins of Celtic peoples who migrated to this area of Asia Minor.
When I read that, I was like, what?
Yeah. Modern day United Kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I figured it out. But I was like, wait a second. Turkey, right?
Yeah.
Penny whistles and potatoes? How did we...
Yeah. I mean, you're Irish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Scottish.
I didn't realize that...
These are my people.
Yeah.
In Galatia.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never went on Ancestry.com. I didn't.
What can you do? Yeah, I mean, Indo-European people were Persians too.
Sure.
Yeah.
That one I'd heard before, though. I've never seen that before until I was reading for the show map. That Galatia is the Celtic people.
Celtic people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the world is a small place in reality.
Yeah, and everybody had to come from somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, look, I want to get out of the cold too. You know, Turkey's got a little nicer climate down there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nicer place.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I'm down here now, aren't I? From up north.
So who's the author of this one, Nick?
Paul.
Of course.
Yep. Ministered in the area during his second missionary journey on his way to Troas.
Troas, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Which is in Greece.
And he revisited them during his third missionary trip in order to strengthen the churches that he had established, and that's according to Acts chapter 18, verse 23.
So, Paul had a close... This is his first missionary journey, right? He had been changed. He had this miraculous encounter. And now, instead of, trying to murder Jewish messianic people, right? People who believed in Jesus. The cult, or the sect of the Nazarenes, right? So he was just close to the church. This was his baby, right?
Yep.
This book is written to kind of combat some sort of bad teaching, right? He knew, and this is the crazy thing about it, right? So Paul, pulled no punches. When Peter and Barnabas went there and they started acting like Jews when Jews showed up, he's like, guys, we're one new man here. Right? So, what are we doing? You sat and you ate with them when there were no Jews here,
and then
but
when
now
the Jews came around, you want to be with the cool kids. But it was really funny because in the notes when it says he was very aware of the hypocrisy of Peter and Barnabas, and it's like, well, who would know hypocrisy better than Paul?
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So.
The guy who stood there while, murder happened, right? So, so this is another. I don't want this point to pass us over. The church was Jewish. Right?
Yeah.
It was the sect of the Nazarenes. And there were practices that the Galatians, being Celtic descent, right? They didn't understand, they didn't know about.
Right.
And the right thing to do was to teach the people and lead the people into the sect of the Nazarenes. But now we're on the other side of that, where we've become like basically an English church, right? So there is a tension in these books that gets fleshed out more and more as we go on,
right,
where the Jewish identity of Jesus becomes problematic for Gentiles. In this book, we see the Jewish identity of Jesus was something that Peter and Barnabas were holding onto dearly, and their own identity, being Jewish people.
Right.
And then Paul's like, guys, God's doing the same thing here, man. Like,
don't burden them unnecessarily.
Yeah, just don't separate from them like this, right?
As we spoke in previous episodes, the pendulum now
swung the exact opposite.
The opposite way.
Yeah. And it's just, this tension is here. I just want to make sure that it's known that tension is in the earliest books, right? So James, all Jewish, man who kept Torah, had calluses on his knees, was known to be in the temple, died in Jerusalem. Then you get Peter and Barnabas here, and they're like, man, when the Jews are around, we gotta look a certain way,
Right.
And Paul's like, yeah, but what do we do here? Why would you separate from them like this? Like, we got to get this figured out.
Right. If you really want them along, you can't act like you're slumming it when you're hanging out with them, and then when your buddies show up, you're better than them.
Totally separate from them, right? Because their eating practices are different. Their culture is different. So the question is how then do you bring those two cultures together? And we find out in many, many letters, not only this one, but as we go, that tension is real.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it had to be discussed multiple times because it was... and it makes sense, and we could look at this and say, okay, so you got Peter and Barnabas with a certain amount of hypocrisy. But you can understand where they got it from. It was a different culture. And they were taught for so long to separate from those cultures.
That's right.
So now for them to be brought in, it's like I would be another hypocrite if I said, oh, how dare they try to make Jews...
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Of course I would.
Of course I would. And there's a lot of things. Like, I can guarantee you that the majority of these Galatian people, they weren't circumcised, right?
Right.
They would be eating pig. They would be eating in a non-kosher way. They wouldn't wash their hands before they eat. There was a lot of ritual stuff that, I mean, all in all is healthy, right? Like
things that they didn't even fully understand at the time, the implications of what they were doing.
But Gentile people didn't do it.
Right.
So, there's a lot here. There's a lot of tension there. And if you really fully understand Torah, then you really can get why that tension was there. I just want to focus on Jesus. I don't want to argue about anything.
Yeah, I'm not trying to.
He's the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Whether or not you keep the law or don't keep the law, I don't know what to do with it except for to challenge the listener, to challenge you, to challenge myself, to just want to be more like Jesus. So we got the title. We got that the Celtic people moved down to Asia Minor, that it's in Turkey. We got the Paul's the author. What's the date on this one?
So the dating of the epistle is influenced by the determination of the region to which Paul wrote the letter, and the strongest arguments support the South Galatia theory. That's going to be looking at around 49 AD. If it had been North Galatia, that would require a later date of 53 to 56.
Okay, so early date, 49. So Paul argues in Galatians that salvation and sanctification are by faith apart from the works of Torah and flesh. The Judaizers were trying to force Gentiles to observe the Torah. There's the tension.
Yep.
Right? But what actually is the tension? Do you throw the Torah out? Because
No,
I don't think
no.
they were saying that.
No, I didn't get that.
No. So the recipients of this letter were addressed to the churches in Galatians, and the Galatians, only Paul and Peter that specifically addresses a church group, a whole group of churches, because it was already happening. So Turkey was already developing not long after Jesus was crucified. Man, this is only like 13 years later or something.
Right.
Big deal, right? The word spread.
Yes.
And there were real churches in place already, real belief systems in place already, and a bunch of Gentiles getting the Spirit of God.
It was a bit freaking out.
Yeah, crazy stuff, man. So, that being said, the Galatians got their circular letter. He addressed them. There were, certain concerns, and that's what the Book of Galatians is about. This has the famous stuff, the fruit of the Spirit, all that stuff. The flesh and all that kind of thing. This is actually everybody knows this book.
Right.
It's a wonderful book. It's a great read. So how do we want to read Galatians?
You want to read Galatians as if you live in a region of the world that has been dominated by pagan religions, which is just what we were talking about. The most important things was what they valued the most. You got your mysticism, demonic magic, your sex cults, and all that crazy stuff. But by faith in Jesus Christ, you have been transferred out of the kingdom of darkness and brought into the kingdom of God's light. So you heard the gospel through the preaching of the Apostle Paul and Barnabas, confessed your sins, and accepted the grace and the liberty that come through the knowledge of death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Yep. Coming out of the waters, baptized, and all that kind of stuff. Remembering Exodus.
Yeah.
They didn't even know what they were doing, probably.
Yeah. But this is where we get to why it was so foreign to them.
Yeah.
It flew in the face of everything that was their culture.
Well, which is the cool thing about the New Covenant, and the reason why we did the Revealing Faith series with the 3 testimonies before we got to the New Testament, is because it is a miraculously based covenant. This didn't happen because men forced it upon the world. This happened because God did something crazy.
Right.
So Paul argues that salvation and sanctification are by faith apart from the law and the flesh. Now, Paul is arguing against rabbinic Judaism, not against Torah, not against the wisdom of God's writing, of giving us the thing that created the nation, right? He's arguing against oral law. He's arguing against you can never touch a head of the head of the grain on the Sabbath. Jesus argued against this too, but Jesus also said, "Do as they teach you." Right? Jesus also said, "Not jot or tittle, the law will pass away." There's a tension that Christians have not wrestled with. And Galatians is one of these books that makes us go, okay, well, the Torah is not important. But that is not what the argument here is.
No, I think it's more similar to what you said before, when you said, there's greater and lesser reward. It's not qualification of just basic salvation.
But that's only if you keep it. There's a greater or lesser reward.
Yes.
We should still learn about it.
Yeah. No, I agree. But what I'm saying, when you said you don't care whether or not somebody it's a greater,
could care less.
But I think that's Paul's not saying something different there.
No, he's definitely not.
Right.
No.
So
yeah, I want the listener to understand and grab a hold of that tension and not dismiss it and learn how to live with it for a while.
Yeah.
Just learn how to live with that tension for a while, and don't see the Torah as something that is not meaningful, but see it as something that I just don't understand today. That's the tension. Because if you don't understand it today, it means you might someday want to understand it.
Right.
And if you could someday want to understand it, then the tension becomes less and less and less, until you see that Jesus was just arguing against people who treated it poorly, who made it a burden. Because if you see it as wisdom, then it's not a burden, it's a benefit. And that's where the tension for me just went away. It's wisdom to me. I love it. I don't see a problem with it at all. And it bothers me when we get a book like Galatians and we go, okay, no good, right? Because that's not what I want. I don't want people to say, okay, no good. I want people to grab a hold of that and go, it's there, and I gotta struggle with it. And until they go, oh, it's really not that much of a struggle. It actually fits pretty well in my hand,
Yeah.
And
well,
then,
it does, but there will still be questions, because we're just like the Galatians, where we have a totally different culture. And
that's right.
Does this apply to me or doesn't it? And it's like, that's not even really the question. So.
And so here's what happened in Galatia, though. They suddenly had to become Jewish.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't got to do that.
Right.
That's not. And I'll tell you. As a matter of fact, I've never wanted to be Jewish. I'm a Scottish dude, right? Never had a desire for it. Love to be around it, right? Love it. But I don't want to be Jewish. I watched people who wanted to be Jewish. I watched people go off the deep end, like you're saying, right? I watched it. I saw it. And it's not very attractive, It's odd, right? It makes you go, oh, man, And a lot of those people probably haven't survived in the faith. And if they have, they're not the same.
Well, a lot of them get into some mysticism and all.
Oh, yeah, I have the hand of Ham. So I've seen all that, to the Kabbalah and stuff.
Yeah,
So, but the thing is like, the tension has to be lived out in a meaningful, rational way.
Sure.
A calm way. A way that just makes you hungry for what the Bible is. Yeah. What is it? I don't know. I'm just going to hold on to this thing until my hand hurts. And then eventually I can kind of let go, because now I understand more. And then eventually you just have much more knowledge. And then knowledge produces good action. Knowledge, action, knowledge, action. Not rash action, little knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So the key verse in this is, nevertheless, knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the Torah, but through faith in Jesus Christ, even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we may be justified by faith in Christ, and not by the works of the Torah, since by the works of the Torah shall no flesh be justified. Legit. Because what does the Torah do? It shows you what's wrong.
Yeah.
You shall not lie, but you're a liar.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so now we stand before God and we go, I have turned against your wisdom, and I just want you to love me. And then he says, I tell you the truth on this. And it always goes back to the thief on the cross for me. Because no matter what actions I take, no matter how many Sabbaths I keep, I am not better than the thief on the cross.
Right. There's something strange that happens with this verse. I don't think in most cases it's insidious, but it's almost a reversal of the meaning that I'm taking from it. When you read, since by the works of the law no flesh shall be justified, some people take that as, I don't have to care about the law because it can't justify me. And it's like, no, you can't justify yourself by the law.
Yes.
It has to be faith.
Yes.
It's exactly backwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's my point with this, right? Like, we most often, and I see this, it is by far the majority opinion, that the Torah really doesn't mean anything. But that is not the case here. Paul was a Jewish man of Jewish men.
Yeah.
He loved the law. But he's saying there's no sacrifice that can save you. There's no Sabbath keeping that can save you. Because now the new covenant is the covenant of blood that Jeremiah spoke of. Where God,
Right.
Jeremiah says, will put his law in you.
Yeah.
He'll write it on your heart for you. The Torah is always present.
Right. It's not dispensing with the law at all, but it's just saying that you can't save yourself by the law.
Yes.
This is your path, and it's not that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it doesn't matter.
It's not action based, it's all Jesus.
Yeah.
That being said, if you love me, you'll keep my law, he says.
He did, yes.
Woo! Thank you for joining us for another Modern Mind Ancient Book. We hope that this conversation was interesting to you. We certainly have enjoyed having it. Until next time. Again, if you'd like to reach out to us, modernmindancientbook@gmail.com. Thank you so much.